Hi everybody, it's Paul Corbett again from Charles Faram and Company. Welcome to our latest edition of the Hop Catch-Ups. I'm delightful, I'm pleased to say I've been joined by Graham Gamache here from Toppenish. Graham, welcome this morning. Your morning, my afternoon here in Worcestershire. I think it's what, 8 a.m. in the morning there with you?
Yeah, it's a bright, sunny, a little bit brisk 8 a.m. here in the lower valley, Toppenish, Washington. Just southeast of Yakima.
Well, thanks for joining us. Perhaps you could just say a little bit about yourself and the farm, and we can then move on to what's been happening in the crop this year.
Sure. My name's Graham Gamache. I'm a fourth generation hop farmer. My farm was established by my grandfather, Amos Gamache, in 1948, and I purchased my family out in 2013, and it's still Amos Gamache Farms, but I started an operating company, and we're publicly known as Cornerstone Ranches. And I was born and raised on the farm. I've been here my entire life, and here I am for another crop year, 2021. Yeah,
fantastic. So just so we know, what varieties do you grow there, Graham?
Oh, we grow quite a few varieties. We grow the proprietary popular varieties like Citra, Mosaic, and Simcoe, but we also grow quite a few public varieties. We've been growing Cashmere since it really took root, so to speak, with brewers. And we've been the world's largest producer of Cashmere, which is a public variety. For every year, we end up planting just a few more acres to keep that distinction, although unwittingly. Also, we grow Galena. Still, we used to be a huge Galena producer, but now we just have a small 2-acre plot. Of course, CTZ, Zeus, Tomahawk, Columbus. We grow Pato, Simcoe.
Are you still growing the Chinook?
We still grow Chinooks. We used to be a very large Chinook producer, and that has whittled down over the years, and now we only have about 20 acres of Chinooks.
I remember
Eldorado, we're a large Eldorado producer as well, and Crystal, I'm sure a few others that I'm not thinking of right now. But yeah, about 11 varieties, I think.
I know when we normally come out to see you, and you very kindly show us around the farm in your busiest period, but that's normally sort of Galena, Chinook time. I think we normally sort of see those varieties coming off. So that'll be about the third week in September, I guess. Something third.
Yeah, that's kind of a mid-late time. Yeah, we used to pick Chinooks. Well, I mean, Chinook was a huge part of our farm for a long time, and a lot of acres, and it's a very forgiving hop with its picking window as well. And now that it's a smaller variety and not quite as desirable, we pushed it later in the picking window.
Please don't say it's not desirable. We have a lot of customers who still love Chinook. It's a great
we would love to grow more I mean, that's a wonderful hop to grow. It's one of my favorite hops. So we would love to grow more of those. We've been growing them for many decades.
Yeah, no, it's a very nice variety. I think very underrated these days. I think it's something that people should try more of. I think they tend to get a little bit excited by all these big new names that are coming in, but actually Chinook has got some amazing grapefruit citrus characters that some of the varieties haven't. So
I agree 100%. It's actually one of the more memorable varieties from my youth. The cone structure being like a little bit flats on the sides, and it's a wonderful hop.
Super. And what else do you grow on the farm? Other crops do you have there?
We're also a large apple producer as well. So we grow hops are our main commodity, acreage wise and revenue wise. But apples, we started growing apples in about 1982. My grandfather bought a small farm with Goldens and Red Delicious on it, and we've been expanding ever since. And it's actually a very integral part of our operation.
And I guess that has been less affected by COVID than the hop side of things, I would imagine. Or has the hop side been okay? Or how has COVID affected the farm?
I think both hops and apples affected equally in just obscure, obtuse kind of ways that, it was during the pandemic. It was business as usual because it's still, we were an essential business of being agriculture. People want to eat, people want to imbibe, they want to drink. So we didn't stop. It was just a very strange time figuring out how to handle all these large crews of people and keeping the virus from spreading. We were, knock on wood, we were fortunate enough that we never had any major outbreaks or any blips in the operation or any big tragedies on the farm. And then on the marketing side, it's just been kind of a hold your breath kind of scenario where there's a lot of just a lot of uncertainty that could tend to breed anxiety that you just shouldn't make any decisions on, because everybody just went from like long-term conversations to very short-term conversations. But the short-term conversation still was a lot of volume, both on hops and apple side. So it's still just business as usual, and just a little more not as long-legged business.
Have you reduced the acreage at all? Have you kept it going throughout?
No reductions.
No reductions. Yeah.
There, especially in 2020, there were some contractual reductions, but nobody asked us to remove any acres, and so we continue to. We're still at full production.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And from the variety side of things, I mean, do you still grow any of those early varieties like Willamette or Centennial? Are you still growing those?
Oh, we never really grew very much Willamette. We were and always have been a large producer for Miller Coors and not Anheuser-Busch. And the Willamette really came into the valley through the AB growers and AB Direct, and we never really got involved with that. And then eventually just Willamette production is better in the Oregon southern areas.
Yeah.
And AB kind of moved out. Willamette moved out of the Yakima Valley, and so we never grew that. But we've been growing Centennial for many years, and we're still a very large Centennial producer. It's actually the largest variety that we produce on this farm. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, because I know some growers struggle with Centennial because it's quite difficult to get to yield some years.
It is, and it can be a little unreliable. It throws you a curveball every 3 to 5 years. It wants to do like a half yield thing, and that can be hard to mitigate. Strong relationships.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the cornerstone to a lot of things, and especially Centennial. So you can kind of tell. So far this spring, and the way it's very much the canary in the coal mine of the Centennial. So growers that are familiar with it will talk about, well, this seems like it might be a decent Centennial year or an average Centennial year, and that means that it might be boding well for the rest of the varieties. And
fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. You can kind of tell, especially by the first week of June or mid-June, whether the Centennials are going to, and then most especially in July, whether Centennials are going to yield well. And if they look like they're not going to do well, you start those conversations early with your buyers that it might be a Centennial short year.
So what do you think affects the Centennial? Is it the heat, or is it something else that goes on in a particular year?
I mean, farming is definitely a very chaotic system, and there seems to be some order there, but it's hard to discern. And I'm sure a lot of growers have some pretty solid theories. I think heat units are definitely a big one. But who's to say certain variety? There's these industry standards from crop year to crop year, and certain varieties just across the board don't seem to yield well on certain years, or same thing with the sensory profile. Certain varieties just seem to really pop some years and are muted others. And I don't know what, I mean, I would love to know what really affects all those things, but there's.
I think that there are some of these guys are scientists who come up with these ideas about what's affected it, how it's worked. You think, oh yeah, that's right, and then the following year it completely blows the theory out of the water. So it changes again.
But Centennial in particular, if you have a very hot spring, it'll want to explode out of the ground. and it can be exciting to watch because you have a lot of vegetative growth, but it may not actually translate into a good yielding year, just because the internode space between the internodes, you may not have as many branching structures, which sets the crop. So generally, hot springs tend to not be great centennial years, but generally, I would say.
But okay so far this year.
Yeah, this has been a cool spring. It's been very windy. Last year was a really windy spring. This has been just as windy, if not more. The wind it's hard to it kind of affects your labor. It's not really fun to be around, and it's not good for the heads because they just whip around. It roughs up the plant. It also tends to dry things out. It just makes it more difficult to farm. But I don't know. I can't say that it's going to have any adverse effect on the crop. It didn't really have it last year. The wind event during harvest really screwed things up. But no, so it's been a cooler spring, and so far it looks like yield and quality are on track.
Very good. Very good. And what about our old friend Cascade? Because this is a variety that we still sell a lot of Cascades in the UK, and we are a little bit worried about it. We hear sort of rumours about it not being so popular these days amongst growers. Is that the case, or what is the situation with Cascade nowadays?
Well, with the craft beer boom, Cascade, of course, was at the forefront because it's always been at the forefront of craft. Mm-hmm. And there was quite a bit of Cascade production I would say in the late 80s and through the 90s. But with the craft brew boom, there's been a lot of hop research and hop breeding. And so where you get the Citras, Mosaics, and Simcoes that everybody's excited about, and then new varieties that are coming on board. And they've just kind of shoved these public varieties into the back burner. And the pricing structure is more appealing, and just the shiny new object syndrome that any commodity gets. And so Cascades have been slowly dwindling. And then of course it's susceptible. The roots are susceptible to viruses. It can be difficult to maintain a Cascade field as healthy and robust. Even the best growers are faced after so many years with the question of whether they need to renew that field just because the viruses started to get in.
Right. That's interesting.
Yeah, it can screw with production. And then it's susceptible, just like other varieties with, just the crop year to crop year, it can have different yields. And so it actually was quite short last year, to everyone's surprise, because normally Cascades have been long. And last year it was kind of a double whammy where a lot of people have been removing them, and it had a very bad crop year for one reason or another. And just because the pricing structure for Cascades hasn't been that great, because it hasn't been as desirable of a hop, and the inventories have been long. There's a lot of old crop year Cascades still hanging around in warehouses and whatnot.
Yeah,
growers weren't very motivated to rejuvenate their fields, and so consequently, there's not very many virus-free or newer Cascade fields out there, which means they're more subject to the viruses and variable production. So I think it was a double whammy. Not as many acres. It's starting to get shoved to the back shelf. And then last year wasn't a very good Cascade year either. So in fact, it was probably the worst Cascade production year I've ever seen.
Wow. Okay.
It was considerably low. I had a field that I ended up actually renewing, but it wasn't the greatest yielding field, and it really didn't yield at all. It was about 50% production last year.
Right. Wow. So, I guess the message there for our brewer friends is, if you're looking for Cascades, make sure you get your contracts in early, because it could be that this variety is going to struggle to have enough available on the market. So.
Yeah, and I think it might take a couple years. Growers and buyers alike might be more interested in flushing out some of the older inventory before they're renewing that. Nobody's eager to burrow into an oversupply situation again once things start to get corrected. And last year, from an industry standard, might have been a good thing for that variety just to correct its position, and brewers that are really depending on it as for their flagship beers might be looking to 2019 crop or 2018 crop that's still hanging around, which could be still very good, high quality, as long as it's stored and pelletized properly and stored correctly. But yeah, if you're interested in 2021 Cascades, you should make sure to renew your contracts or go out and get a new contract.
Get covered well early because they might not be there. Yeah, good point. Good point.
Yeah.
And I guess the availability of labour, is that been an issue this year? Have you managed to get enough people to come and do stringing and tying?
Yeah, we've never really had an issue with labor on this farm. Part of the reason is because of my the previous generations. They were pretty smart to get into apples. Apples complement hop production very well.
Yep.
You're able to keep a pretty nice labor pool around for apples, and when there's not as much to do in the apples, there's a lot to do in hops, and so we can keep a pretty large group of people around year round.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
And then the H-2A program through the U.S. government that sources labor outside, mainly in Mexico, but in other countries as well, has been a very effective program. And growers that have invested in that, I think it's paying dividends for them, us included. So labor's been good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very good, very good. And I always love coming to see you on the farm because we see those beautiful trucks that you use for picking the hops. I'm gonna have to get Charlie to cut in there with a little video of your trucks going through the yard.
Oh yeah, I hope you have some footage because that's a point of pride that my grandfather bought these Dodges D4. I think they're called D4s. Dodges in 1974 from the U.S. Forest Service. They were a retired fleet from the U.S. Forest Service here in Washington State, and we still have them running. They're
beautiful trucks. Yeah, and they've got all the paint worn where the hops have rubbed against them over the years as well. They're great.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah, the top cutter pushes them through the vines, and the vines wear on the top of the hood, and there's a patina on there from the hop vines wearing off the paint. If any of your brewers are interested in seeing that, it is pretty neat.
And that for me is a really lovely part of the trip out, to see those trucks working and see them the way that you've kept them going. They're really nice trucks. And of course, following on from that, then we go into the picking shed, and you've got that beautiful picking machine. Yeah,
it's called a Fontaine. I wish I knew more about the history of the man who developed it. I should ask around. Unfortunately, I'm on my farm. Everybody's passed away except for me, so I don't have anybody to. My dad has passed, and my uncle and my grandfather, of course, and so history is a little harder for me to access. But it's all wood, and it was built in my grandfather founded the farm in 1948, and he built that machine in 1950. And we keep it running, and it actually, it's a very quiet machine because it's all wood, and it has a very gentle way of picking, and I mean, obviously there's financial reasons that are advantageous to keep it running, but if once you know how to run it, it's actually a pretty effective instrument, and we enjoy that picking machine a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real treat to come and see it, and as you say, the sound in it. I suppose it's a bit like a wooden roller coaster compared to one of these new metal roller coasters. It's much smoother, and well, probably a little bit bobblier. It does shake a little bit when you're standing on the top there, but it
does. So we put a variable frequency drive on the main picker, which is the actual Fontaine. But back in the day, it used to be a rope that you would pull on that would engage a slip clutch. And when that clutch would actually hit, the whole machine would, like the whole building, actually, the whole building would do this shaking thing till it settled down and it would start picking.
Quite scary.
It's a little easier on the architecture now with the variable frequency drive that we put in there.
Very good. Very good. So through the season, what are your guys up to at the moment? Is there much on in the hop yards? I guess there is through the summer.
Well, May is a very busy month and a crucial month in hop production with training, picking the right vines and putting them on the string, choosing, I should say, the right vines from the hill and then wrapping them on the string. And, there's first training and second training, and we're wrapping up on second training, so to speak. We're finishing up with that. And then with all the wind, the wind tends to break off heads or just flop heads off, and so you go back through certain fields and try to correct that.
Yeah,
So
I was
we're
going to
just
say,
finishing up that. Yeah, we're finishing up that, and we should be done in the next couple days. Our crews have been bleeding off of transitioning from training hops into thinning apples, so we spend a lot of time picking the little apples off so we can have the nice size perfect apple in our apple trees. And that's an example of where labor really of the two commodities complement each other. And so we're mostly on apples now, but we have a small crew still going around fixing the wind damage and doing that second training. And I think middle to late of this week, they'll all be committed to apples, and hops we're just spraying and irrigating at that point.
No, fantastic. And are they on schedule for this year? Because I know in Europe it's been quite cool spring. And so, particularly here in the UK, the hops are still a good week or two behind. So, we hope. Yeah.
Same here. Things look. Certain varieties look a little more behind than others. For some reason, Citra just blew up. Citra looks beautiful. Cashmere really took its time to decide to grow, and was a little nerve-wracking. But then we got a lot of heat last week, and it blew up and it caught up with where it's supposed to be. Centennial looks actually great. Looks right where it's supposed to be. I don't have any alarm bells going off. Everything there, a couple things do look behind, but there's plenty of time to catch up. So
yeah, that's good. That's good. No, that's good. I think Cashmere is one that we sell a little bit of. We haven't sold an awful lot of it. I think it is a very good variety. That I think it's if brewers are looking for something to take away from this presentation, maybe that's something that they should try is have a go with the Cashmere, because it does have quite an unusual, very interesting flavour. That nice fruit characters and very, very. Where people have used it, they've been very pleased with it. So it's worth having a go with it, I think.
Yeah, we found brewer demand has been pretty strong in Cashmere, and it didn't taper off. It actually just continues to strengthen. It's a really interesting hop from the grower's perspective, that it's such a light little fluffy cone, and you just don't think you're going to get much out of it, but it yields pretty nicely. And it's also unique. I've never seen a hop which sensory profile changes so much during the picking and curing process. So it smells one way in the field, doesn't smell like much, and then all of a sudden it takes on a very ripe characteristic, and you get a very profound smell. And then when you dry it, the smell changes quite a bit. And then when you bale it and you press it, it changes again.
Wow.
And I've never seen a hop that is so dynamic in its profile that way. But I think it's pretty consistent in the pellet, the feedback that we get.
Yeah.
Pick dates are very important with so certain hops like Centennial, you have to train it the right time, or it's not going to be a very happy hop. Cashmere, we're still learning about it, but it seems to be kind of forgiving in the growing side. But if you pick it too early, it doesn't smell like much. And if you pick it too late, you get this dirty diaper kind of off character smell.
That doesn't sound great.
Yeah. So I think here on Cornerstone Ranches, we distinguish ourselves with that variety because we managed to get a very good foundation with the rootstock early on. And I've been propagating from that. And so we produce our own roots. I've never buy off farms, so it's always been that same rootstock that we got. And then we stumbled upon the correct pick date very early in the process, and we haven't strayed from that. So if you get Cornerstone Cashmere, you get a very specific pick date, which is pretty guaranteed flavor profile.
Yeah, that's great. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Keep going for that same sort of date.
Yeah. We're not picking it or any earlier or any later, because I've smelled both, and that's not something I want to produce. So we've been lucky.
There you go. Very good. So for the rest of the season, anything that's planned, or have you any acreage changes? It's quite interesting for us to hear about the way that you're looking to change, or the contracts are making you change acreage. Is there anything happening, or is your acreage pretty stable at the moment? Have you got one variety going up, one coming down?
No, this has probably been, as a result of, well, a double prong. I think that's always been a grower's goal, is to not be too dynamic. It's costly to switch varieties, and then as in the baby year, I mean, this is what distinguishes Yakima Valley, is we do have very good baby year hops, but the production's not as as something that you can really count on. So we don't really want babies, and so it's been a goal to try to be all mature production. That has been really difficult. The hop market's been so dynamic, and so it seems like about 25 to anywhere 15 to 25% of our production has been renewal every year. So I've been working towards trying to get the right relationships and the right contracts, so I could have a year, if not 3 years, where it's just mature production for a long time. And COVID kind of helped that out.
Yeah.
Last year there was so much uncertainty, there was less rush to contract new varieties. And so this year, 2021, is probably the first year we do have some babies, but I can honestly say it's almost entirely elective, and some of them are cascades. I chose to renew some of our cascade roots just because it was such a god-awful year last year with the viruses, and industry-wide it produced short. So I had some breathing room. I didn't have a whole lot of other babies, so I elected to choose the crop year of 2021 to renew our foundation of roots.
So with those viruses, once you've taken the roots out, if you go straight back in with some more cascade, is there a danger that might catch them again, or that once you've taken the roots out, you clear them?
Yes. No, there is a danger, just because you can never be quite certain that you have removed 100% of the roots that were there before. Hop roots can be quite tenacious, and they want to grow, and they're robust, and so you and so you're not going to get the viruses out of the soil itself. I mean, you can get the virus, they're not in the soil, they're not going to hold over, but they will hold over in any organic matter that's still living from the previous crop year. And so it's going to happen, so you just get clean roots in there. It's not a if, it's a when. If you can keep it as clean as possible, then hopefully you can just delay it for quite a while. And cascade just tends to be really susceptible to these varieties. So you run your disc or your cultivator or a piece of equipment around through another field, and then they switch fields into that cascade field, and that'll bring it in. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, good. And how is everything else in the Yakima Valley? Is everybody well and keeping out of trouble?
Yeah, no, things seem to be pretty good around here. Everybody's waking up and turning their pumps on in the morning, and water's flowing, and things look good.
And is the sports centre back open?
Which one? The
one up in Yakima, the bar.
The Sundome? Everything seems to be open. Yes, I mean we're. It's been a slow return, but things seem to be coming back pretty. Everybody wants to get back to normal, and it's happening.
Same here. Yeah, it'd be nice, and hopefully we can get out and see you this year. We missed last year, obviously, with the lack of travel, and I think there's still quarantine if you do travel to the States. That's if you're allowed in. So we will hope to get out in September and see you again, but fingers crossed that the restrictions will have been lifted by then.
Well, we certainly would love to have you. Yes, it was there's quite a lot of attention during hop harvest. It's a very interesting time, and so the lack of foot traffic last year was a nice breather, I'll have to admit. But at the same time, you miss all your friends,
Yeah.
And, you know, and we're doing business. And so we want the attention, you know, so come on back. You know, we definitely want you back on the farm. We in particular love your visits because you bring such a nice group of brewers from the UK, and it's good to have that international perspective. We enjoy that very much. So I hope that things work out and you can continue the tour.
Fingers crossed. Yeah. Well, I'm hoping we're opening up steadily over here, and we're struggling with international flights right now, but bars and things are opening back up, so that's good. We can at least go for a beer or two now, which is great.
Yeah, that on-site consumption thing really, we need it. So
we do.
It's good that the human species kept drinking, but let's start drinking together again. I mean,
right. Drinking at home is not the same as drinking in the bar, is it?
No, not at all. Right.
We'll have to get together and have one of those next time we're over. But thank you very much indeed, Graham, for joining me this morning. I really appreciate you getting up early to come and say hello. And I'm sure that our listeners and viewers will have enjoyed the chat and your update on the crop. Really appreciate it. And as I say, I hope to see you out in September. Fingers crossed. We'll hope that.
Yes, fingers crossed. It's good to see you. Thank you, Paul.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Graham. Thanks very much. That's great.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.